Howdy everyone, hope you're doing well. So just yesterday I realized that Skillet dropped their new album Victorious, and straight away I went onto Apple Music and had a quick listen while I was away home from work on the train, and I'm very impressed. I've listened to a whole bunch of new albums this year, but honestly, this album's gonna probably be right up there with one of my favorites. There's a lot of tracks in it that I really enjoy, and there are a couple that are quite different for what Skillet's known for in a way. First off, let's just take a quick thing. I'm going to shout out some of the important tracks I feel so you guys can take a listen. The single, I believe, is Legendary, which is the first track that appears on the album. But here are my picks for what you should listen to. Save Me, Rise Up, Terrify the Dark, Anchor, and Finish Line. They're my favorite ones. So there's quite a few there, and there's quite a bit of variety. So what I wanted to do is just poke out a couple of things in regards to this new album that I feel are quite important. Just gonna pop in here. So one, I like the album art. It's very cool. It's almost like Game of Thronesy, really. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but it kind of looks like it. So all in up, there's 12 tracks, as you can see. The guys with a little love heart are the ones that I mentioned before. Now, Legendary itself, I really love the music behind it. I'm just not a real fan of some of the lead hook. It's kind of broken up. I might just play it here, and the way that they've chosen to emphasize on one of the syllables just makes it sound like dairy, and I don't know, it doesn't sound quite right to me. But I'll play the drop because this bit's sick. Like, that right there is awesome as hell. And so, like, I can see why it is probably the single on the track, on the album, rather. I'm just gonna find that section that I was talking about. So here's the part right here, and just have a listen to where the accent falls. And it doesn't sound quite right to me, but it's just a small thing. Overall, the track's pretty great. Some of the ones that kind of blend in, if you do like Legendary, are You Ain't Ready, Victorious, and This Is the Kingdom. They kind of all sort of intertwine with each other in terms of the kind of sound they were trying to achieve, I feel. The most different, I believe, is Anchor, which still sounds freaking awesome. It's in that first 10 to 30 seconds where a lot of people decide if they like something or not. At least closer to the 10-second mark is where I'm at, and on almost all the tracks it hits that mark, I feel. This one here is quite different in terms it's a lot more, you know, sentimental, I suppose you could say. Beneath the horizon, and you say that I'm strong. Oceans you've never broken through, every wave of the storm. You are my anchor, so steady me. So yeah, that one gives me the tingles when I listen to it. It's funny how on all the tracks, despite their different moods, there's a lot of power in the mix. Like, it's very well done. The guitars on Rise Up, for example, you gotta hear this. This gives me like a Down with the Sickness, Home by 3 Days Grace vibe. It's so meaty. I love it. I absolutely love it. I think for me the best chorus would come with Terrify the Dark. I feel as though it's That's hands down my favorite chorus rather. Out of all of them, it's got some really great blends between the lead vocal and the backing vocal. I've noticed quite a lot on this album, in contrast, particularly in my opinion, to Comatose. And I suppose you could say Rise a little bit. What I'd say is there's a lot more clarity and isolation of the lead and backing vocals, so they are clearer. Sometimes it almost feels like they're not a part of the same soundscape as everything else, but overall it has great clarity, so you can really hear that lead vocal and the backing vocal poking through the track. If I was to summarize how the album as a whole sounds, I would say, in terms of musical motion, I get the feelings of Comatose. In terms of the actual overarching sound of the album, I would go with something closer to Rise. And it's a very cool blend between the two, I feel. And if I was to go out on a limb, I would say my favorite track overall, I would honestly probably say Rise Up. It's probably the most different track I think I've heard by Skillet. And it's got like a 1, 2, 3, 4 sort of a dancey kind of rhythm to it, and it's just something very different, but they do it in a way that it just works. It doesn't feel like they're trying to completely change what genre they do or anything like that. It's almost like a blend of the two, and it works great, I feel, especially at the start. I'm just going to replay this one at the start just so you can understand what I'm talking about. And then it comes in there afterwards where it's not a kick on every bar from what I can hear. And I just think that's really cool. It's a cool blend between the two, and as it goes throughout the track, it blends things up. Mixes things up. Rise up, rise up. See what I mean? It's kind of like a mixture between the two with, like, you know, that rise and fall and stuff like that. It's really cool. The one thing I will say is, I wouldn't say it's an overall criticism, but it is something that you notice throughout a lot of the tracks. It goes back to that whole 30-second intro thing that I was talking about, where people decide in the 30 seconds whether they like it or not. Something I've found, if you just go through and listen to each track for just a couple of seconds, almost all of them start off with basically a rise and hit. So basically, I just said basically twice. So what I mean by that is, probably the best example I can give you is straight off the bat, Legendary. So it's got this build up, build up, build up, build up, and then drop on the one. And a lot of them do that. You Ain't Ready does it. And so, like, it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just something that I noticed which trends across a lot of the songs. There's a lot of these build-ups and then, you know, fall down on the ones. And I guess it's that blending between, like, almost dance and hard rock, I suppose you could say. But in terms of my overall thoughts, look, I would say, for 2019, from what I've heard so far, this is probably, whether you like Skillet or not, if you like rock, I would say this is probably an album you should definitely listen to. It's very well done. It's got a nice blend between. It is quite loud though. It's mastered definitely loud. There's not a real lot of dynamics that you get from like classic rock and stuff like that. You can hear that, especially in Anchor. It is quite heavily compressed. But overall, I think it's one of those albums that, you know, sounds great listening to it on headphones. It's got some songs in there for if you want to listen to something when you're working out and stuff. It's got that power behind it, make you want to get up and move. And it's also got some songs in there that are great for, you know, just chilling out with your mates on a weekend or something like that. So it hits a variety of ticks on what you'd want out of an album. And I would say for, you know, a band that's been going on for quite some time now, it's good to see that they can still come out with a new album that's an absolute banger. But anyway, that's it from me. go and take a listen for yourself. I'm pretty sure it's out on all the majors, Spotify. I'll link them all down in the description just to make it easy for you to jump over to your favorite one. Alrighty, have a good day, guys, and take care.